apparently we are live.
All right. So welcome to our second broadcast, or uh, or I will say our first successful broadcast so far, because the other one couldn't make it through. Yeah, so uh, very lucky that the three of us could be together. We were scheduled for next week, but somehow we managed to make it. So I'm very happy to have the chance to discuss the video with you guys live. And how many viewers do we have so far?
None.
None. Okay, they will watch it later.
There was one, but that was me checking that it worked fine, and it does. But we have zero viewer.
That's okay. So, good morning to me. Good what evening for both of you, right?
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Good. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's start right away, right straight to the point. So, Inzan, thoughts about the video?
Is he gone?
I cannot. I cannot hear you.
Well, the image doesn't move either, so we might have a.
No, the image is okay for in my side.
Really? I don't see him moving.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, Inzan fix his the box his sound. Denis,
Yes.
your call. So, what is your thoughts about it?
Well, I think it's there are different aspects, but I mean, you mentioned that impermanence is quite important in terms of actually embracing life and basically appreciating your son growing up, for example. I think that's true. I think in a Buddhist cultivation perspective, impermanence is also very, very key in the sense that, well, if we are to improve our condition, it assumes that it will change. So it's actually, impermanence can be seen as a curse. When we project permanency, we want things to stay forever. But in practice, because our life is not particularly satisfactory, then it's a good news that we can change that, and we can not change ourselves, change the conditions, change how we relate to the world, how we see it. So I think it's not just about impermanence will bring good things to us from the outside. It's also from the inside that we can change the world. That would be my first thoughts from the video.
Oh, pretty nice. Inzan, did you fix your sound? Looks like not. What about it just closing the window and rejoin again? That might do it. Well, in the meantime, yes, as you say, everything is we live our own impermanence, and it can be seen as a course, or it can help us to understand many things, and impermanence is not just as I mentioned in the video, because it's very difficult to not be caught in the framework of death only. But we that is just one part of it. But we can focus about the changes, about the word itself. It says impermanence, or nothing is permanent. Your this point of your life is it will change, and it's good because it can be we can actually work to make those to make those changes better and better and better, to have our lives improve our way of life. Inzan, finally you have audio.
You can hear me.
Yes.
You can hear me breathing.
Finally.
Yes. So, impermanence, like you said, I mean, I don't think of it in terms of it being a blessing or a curse or anything other than just the natural state of things. When we enjoy something, we can't, we want it to stay forever. And if we're at work, we can't wait for it to end. Just like, oh, the new iPad is going to make me complete the new love, the new, hey, let's try this restaurant tonight. That'll do it. Oh, such a lousy meal and such small portions besides. It's just, one of the symptoms of just overall dukkha. It's not that we dislike impermanence, because half the time we can't wait for stuff to be done with, and the other half of the time we want it to stay. And it's just a matter of being able to cope with those competing emotions, those competing pulls, maintaining some sort of balance. One could even say take the middle path on it and realize that if things are going badly, they'll end. If things are going well, they'll end also. But no reason not to enjoy them or feel them fully in either direction when they're happening.
Yeah. Also, I believe as well that that resistance to impermanence, that kind of a natural aversion for it, is because naturally we are prone to feel secure. The human likes don't like changes, or the main tendency is not to like changes, because as I mentioned before in the video, that we want to talk about. Well, I'm talking a little bit about biology in evolution terms. There was a point where the human the needs to be the more stable as possible, because any unknown change can be potentially dangerous for survival. So we have that rooted in our subconsciousness, about that aversion for changes. So people tendencies is not to change, is to embrace the sense of security. That is why it comes when you think about changes and impermanence. It's a little bit scary. That's another maybe I'm gonna play psychologist now. Not that, but I was thinking that it may be one of the causes why social media, those online media, is so popular, because you can, in a way, grab a permanent self of you. You create a character, and you use your same picture for years. So it's how do you think that people perceive you? You use the same picture, you do the same routine, you only save things, and you don't want the people to see a picture of you, or see your real face. Like, let's say you log in Facebook or Google Plus, and of course many people will not like. You don't want the people to see your face when you just wake up. You want to see nice and handsome picture that you took yourself. I don't know, in jumping a mountain or whatever. So that is part of impermanence as well, or rejections of impermanence is what I think. What did you say?
I think there's a lot more factors involved than trying to secure some sort of permanence or anonymity. I mean, in the digital surveillance age, I'm sorry,
Yeah, of course.
there are way too
There
many
is a lot, but I
other
think
factors involved.
is one of them. No, don't you think so?
Well, you're speaking to a guy who's used a stick figure, a tree, and a Bodhidharma profile for profile pictures, so probably not the one you want to ask about that.
Yeah, well, look at Denis. Many people that hasn't seen him alive will watch that picture with his shaved head, and now they say, like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
it's only 2 years. Funnily enough, 2 years ago I had shaved head. So when I created my Google profile page, the picture was up to date. It's true that nowadays that's a bit more debatable. So I'll need to do something about that, but I don't know. I think one aspect for me about impermanence, funnily enough, is that when people want to make it acceptable, in a way, they imagine that, well, okay, impermanence can be a good thing when it's associated with progress. So as long as it changes in the right direction, then it's good. So of course there are a lot of assumptions associated to that in terms of presuming what is good or bad. But I think one interesting, you mentioned biology, and I think one of the aspects of evolution for me and impermanence is to sometimes just reflect about, well, we arose from a continuous line of change, culturally, biologically, and where does this leave us? In the sense that if I look at what we do in most of our ordinary lives, and then you think, okay, it took millions of years of evolution to get to that point, you can be quite amazed about the level of stupidity we are at. And or just like the concerns, right? You're like, okay, well, we spent, even as Homo sapiens, we spent millennia of evolution, and at the end of the day, we are still focused primarily on when is the next meal, when will I have sex, where can I sleep tonight, kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong in themselves with these concerns, but it's a bit amazing how predominant they are in our lives. And so the very concept of progress can appear quite debatable in terms of primary instincts. We don't seem to transcend them particularly fast. And I guess in a way it sends us back to, well, maybe there is progress and maybe impermanence actually naturally holds the seeds for wisdom. But in another way, if we don't produce the effort, the impermanence is a bit too slow for it to just be a reliable source of happiness. So I think there is a deep aspect in that. But we don't want to cling to permanency, but we also don't want to just relax and wait or go with the flow. That's just not good enough. So for me, that's the sense of the middle way here. Rather than looking at impermanence is good or impermanence is bad and trying to find the middle of this. It's more about, well, in between permanency or despair or hope in evolution, whatever. To actually say, well, if it is impermanence, then I need to engage. It offers the opportunity to engage, but also it requires engagement. It calls for it. So I think for me, that's where the middle way lies in this conversation. Inzan, your turn.
So in terms of aversion, we tend to focus on the greed, lust, clinging aspect of what causes suffering or struggle or dukkha or unpleasantness. But the other side of that coin is the aversion, the tendency for us, if we're in the midst of something that we aren't enjoying, that we can't wait for it to get over with, rather than embracing, whatever the feelings are at that particular moment. When I'm at work, it can be very stressful. And yeah, to be honest, I just assume that it were less so. But, that's the job I have. It's engineering. It involves a certain amount of precision, and it requires a certain amount of diligence in order to, get things done and get them done on deadline and all that. But as I try and make myself get through the day when it's a tough one, I basically use impermanence as a tool to get through it. It's like, okay, this will be over. At some point or another, I'm going to leave work today, and I'll be home, and I'll be elsewhere, and it'll be okay. And, conversely, on the other hand, when I'm at home in the morning before I've gone to work, before I get too, caught up in, woohoo, it's Saturday, I don't have to go to work today. It's like, yeah, okay, it needs to be tempered with a certain amount of, yes, it's Saturday, there are things that have to be done even on Saturday, and then come Monday, I'll be back at work. So, it sort of forces the pendulum into the middle. It can't all be lust, and it can't all be aversion. If you really want to look at things realistically, there's the balance between the two. And until I think people are able to see the balance, that the good times won't last, but neither will the bad times. I have to go to work, but I also have time off from work. I don't know if it calls for a certain amount of acceptance or resignation, or just acknowledging that, that's the way things are. And if you, try and fight against it, is where the struggle comes in.
Yeah, I think there is a reasonable difference between engaging with things and fighting with them. Like if I'm just on this thing about, well, when it's good it will pass, and when it's bad it will pass. In a way, I can be, as you used the word resignation, right? As it can be relatively passive. And then, of course, we can raise the question, what's the point of Buddhist practice in that? Is it just to be more, have a more awareness that the status quo keeps coming back, and that Mondays will keep coming back. And I think there is a sort of revolutionary aspect in Buddhism, in the sense that, well, to just say Monday will come back, in a way, is already projecting a permanency. We are already, actually, we might be dead by next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And so this idea that it will come back, or that things will pass, I think is not enough. And that's where we need to engage. Now, when we engage, doesn't mean we need to fight. Indeed, there is an aspect about acceptance, that this is our starting point. How do I change things, or how do I engage with that? How do I relate to this? Now, these are the relevant questions, but to say, well, I wish the starting point was different, will not help. The starting point is what it is, but how it will unfold is not necessarily permanent itself. And I think that's often the difficulty, is that people can easily see that things are not permanent. In a way, they will accept the idea of cyclicality. So it's like, it's not permanent, but it keeps coming back, and good time, bad time, good time, bad time. But I think even this idea of causality then holds some kind of permanency, and that's the second level that we need to drop. So the first level is, okay, I'm happy and it stays happy. Now we accepted that it waves. But the next phase is to say, okay, I don't know how it waves. Mm-hmm. And maybe it waves up and then up again. Maybe I can do that instead of up, down, mechanically. So for me, I would say there's at least two levels of impermanence. And the first one is easy for people to pick up. The second one, about causality, not always unfolding the same way, it's a bit harder.
Well, that's precisely why it's a circle that it comes and goes, and precisely the impermanence of it give us the chance to, let's say after a circle is closed a couple of times or many times, we can learn from it, and we can at the starting point of a circle, we can engage more in it, and we can learn about the impermanence of the other ones, and learn about them, and make a change of this. Not making it the same cycles, making some changes. And if for some reason we don't we unsuccessfully engaged, we can learn again and do a different thing in the next cycle. But it's thankfully it's impermanent. It will end in one way or another. But you are right. The idea is not just let it happen, because if you just let happen the same and the same, if you behave the same, you will have the same results. So you need to start changing try to change the outcome. So make those cycles getting away of that wheel, and well, get into another and another. So it's life, but it's it's a very good point what you mentioned.
Well, the unpredictability of impermanence is one of the more interesting aspects, because it's not just, Saturday comes, Sunday comes, Monday comes. Although that's been the pattern, it's not always necessarily going to be the pattern, right? At some point or another, even that's going to change. And as far as engaging, ideally, I guess one could say that, if I'm enjoying myself, to fully enjoy myself. if I am feeling stressed or anxious or whatever, to feel fully stressed and anxious. And actually, there's, I believe it was a Tibetan monk, and he was being interviewed once. And, you know, it was somebody who's not from a Buddhist tradition and, you know, had some sort of mental image of, you know, what, you know, a Buddhist was supposed to be, especially, you know, a Tibetan monk up on some Himalaya height pedestal. And at some point it came around to, well, monk, what happens if you feel depressed? And his response was, I feel really depressed. He fully engaged his depression, even, you know, if the optimum would be, you know, that he would have, you know, peaceful equanimity at all times. It's just, it's not like that. Sometimes we just get anxious, feel anxious, let the anxiousness pass.
Yeah, I think it is directly related actually. It's like if I deny being anxious, I will not learn my lessons. I will not see where it comes from. I will not see what are the conditions, circumstances from which it arises. I will not be able to engage in any way, constructively or destructively. It's just like, well, I'm in denial, and then it will repeat itself quite naturally, just because I won't see it coming the next time. So I won't be able to do any better. I don't really like the idea of doing better, but let's say more skillfully, more constructively. So yeah, I think there is a direct link between the engaging fully and the it will pass, actually. the real cessation, the real passing away only happens because I engaged.
Yeah, or worse, pretending that is not happening. Like that kind of philosophy that is not Buddhist at all. That some people thinks that saying good things like, oh, today is wonderful, let's repeat, today is wonderful, and you know, sometimes they have a flu and feel very bad and has some problems, but today is wonderful, and they just look to another part instead of accepting that, okay, there is some problem, let's engage and let's do something about it, instead of pretending that nothing is happening, or pretending that repeating myself that life is nice, life is nice, life is nice, one again and again and again. It is okay to have a positive attitude, it's not bad, but is the to ignore the surroundings is not the idea as well.
Well, it's certainly not dealing with reality head on directly, right? I mean, if that's what your practice is, which mine is supposed to be, you know, if I don't confront what reality is at any given moment, then I'm sort of falling short. And that's part of the whole equation also. But, you know, once I'm aware that I should be at least trying to talk myself into engaging fully, it's hard to justify just being in denial, you know. It's hard to do 100% of the time, but, you know, once you know you can't unknow, that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, okay, we're all in this to not struggle. We want to see reality for what it is. Seeing reality for what it is will, at least in theory, lead to a lessening of the struggles. I haven't fully engaged reality 100% of the time yet, so I can't personally attest to whether it works or not, but I try anyway. And it's something to aspire to, you know. The cessation of struggle and suffering and all that is sort of what we're all in this for, right? For both, you know, personal and just, you know, humanity wide, all sentient beings wide kind of levels. So, you know, we do what we do, including this.
That reminds me that I would like to retake what Denis said before. It was very interesting about the what point humanity is, how much humanity has changed, where's humanity towards to in trying to see it in real terms, because you know, people have a very different opinions. Like, oh, humanity is going down. Another person will say, no, it's going up. Just look at the life expectancy, this, that. But as Dennis said, we still very young in evolutionary terms. About we want some sex. I mean, we are thinking about the sex. What I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna sleep. All that. Mental traits are related to our primal instincts, and the question is not only at what point do you think humanity is. The only question is it human? Because how can I say? Is it intended to drop those primal things? What is what will be the long lasting consequences of let's say a humanity that totally drop the primal instincts? Will it not lead to underpopulation, or what's the middle way in that? What do you think? What do you say about it?
I think it's a classic classic case. I mean, in Buddhism we talk about not clinging to views, and it's always important to remember that the views are not the problem. The clinging is, and that we might have good ideas, and there's nothing wrong with good ideas. It's what's potentially wrong is the clinging when we are sure that it's the only one that is the good, that it has to be the best idea, and there's nothing I can learn from anybody else. This sort of thing. But a good idea is a good idea, or at least it works in a particular environment for the time it works. So in terms of instinct, I think it's similar. It's like we don't need to suddenly no longer ever think about sex, about food, about shelter, about clothes. There's nothing wrong in itself with these thoughts or with these impulses. What might be unskillful and not particularly helping our happiness or worsening our suffering is the way we relate to this. And it's like typically thinking, well, I don't know, I have to have sex. It's like, that's it. I did not have it for 1 week, and it's like, I need to have sex like right now. Now that's typically not a particularly skillful way to relate to the thought or to the instinct. A better way might be to question why you did not have sex for a week. Maybe you're just a prick, and really nobody loves you because you're horrible. Maybe that's what you need to adjust. And maybe it's just not what's important right now. Maybe other issues are a lot more pressing. And I think that's where we need to get at. It's not like the thought will disappear. It's a classic in meditation as well, right? We have to insist that the thoughts will not disappear, but the way we identify with them might. And here it's the same. In terms of instinct, it comes, it goes, okay, just like the rest. And the question is, do I identify with it? So when I'm hungry, do I so identify with I'm hungry that I will refuse to share my meal? Or am I free enough that I am hungry, but I can still look around me, realize that I'm not the only one being hungry, and share my meal, which is a lot more constructive. And I would still need I'd still get some food in that. But I also related to the world in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think it's what it's about, right? It's not the cessation of instinct. It's not the game. It's the stupid identification. As soon as the idea pops up, that's it. It overrules everything else. That's the part I think we need to get beyond.
Yeah, I think that the instincts are very okay. The problem is when they become slaves of the desire. When the strong desires comes in motion. Like, let's say I'm hungry, and it's very okay. You feel hungry and you wanna eat. But the problem is when, okay, but I want to have a big prime rib, and I want to have this and that. And then is when they start the suffering happening for many reasons. First, you can sometimes think about it and then don't have it. You will have some kind of beans, and then you will not enjoy that meal because you wanted a prime rib. So you cling on that desire, and then you start suffering. So I think that's very related. The primal instincts when they are captured by the desire, when you start to embrace them and start wishing more things, and is when it starts to be a chaos, start the suffering, right, Inzan?
Yeah, I don't know. When Denis was talking, it reminded me of something. Have either of you read the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment?
I think I did, but it's a while back.
Yeah, it's used in Korean song a lot as one of the Mahayana texts that's probably focused on more in song than it would be in Zen. So anyway, the gist of it is, and it's been a while for me too. But the gist of it is that there are all these various and sundry bodhisattvas, and they're asking the Buddha questions, and they start from, I think Manjushri is the first, and it goes through the whole gamut of them, Santavara and everybody, and it starts out from a sudden enlightenment perspective, and then consecutively the bodhisattvas are, yeah, well, but, so it goes more toward the gradual enlightenment end of things. So anyway, my point in all this is that at one point the Buddha points out that being as that we're all here right now, it's as a result of a rebirth. Right? None of us are here for the first time ever, with no preceding rebirths prior, right? And that the rebirth itself is a result of karma. And one of the karmic elements of that, as far as the biological birth process goes, is the fact that there was a pretty good possibility that there would be attached lustful love involved somewhere in that causal chain. So it just, the whole sort of biological imperative and all that, that figures into the whole causal conditions and residue of karma. That's why we're all here, basically, is because of conditions that occurred in the past. Nothing, huh?
Well, okay. I guess I'll continue on that. The because it kind of goes back to a question of Julio about, well, if we engage more freely or less obsessively with our instincts, will that lead to underpopulation or, yeah, basically aging population to a point that suddenly we lose 1 billion people on the planet or something? I think that's quite an important question, actually, and I don't have an answer to that. But I would say one of the interesting compulsions that we can observe in people remains the projections they do on their kids. So basically, they want to live forever, or they want to have at least a legacy forever. So they want, if they accumulated some wealth or some name, they want this to continue after their death. And so part of that's one of the reasons to have kids, simply as some sort of delusion around I can work around my death by giving life to the next generation, and this next generation actually is a part of me, is an extension of me, in a way is me, and we directly can see rebirth in that. So I guess one of the consequences of being less obsessively engaged with the instincts is that you might end up, yes, deciding not to have kids so much, or maybe you will adopt kids, so they're already there, but you don't feel the need to transmit your genes or wealth or fame. Inzan, stop playing with your mobile phone.
I'm trying to send the link to somebody.
And so yeah, I don't have a definite answer about will that lead to underpopulation. Personally, I don't see too much of a problem with controlling the population, given that at the moment it's exponentially growing, and that it will go to a disaster in terms of national resources. So it seems relatively wise to actually reduce it or stop the growth.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, of course, some economists will say, well, okay, if you stop the growth of the population, who will be your new clients generating growth in the economy? I don't believe in this, primarily because I think more and more of the economy is going towards services and toward immaterial goods. So it's about the speed of circulation in between people rather than having more people. So that's the way you can get more flow in the economy, is by the speed rather than the number. So I don't see it necessarily as an economical problem. It would obviously change some dynamics between younger age, university age, working force, and then retirement. Well, I don't think it's like a doom scenario at all. So we can engage with this. I think and then because we are not clinging to our instinct, we are actually able to ask the question: well, is 1 kid the right number? 2 kids? 3 kids? And depending on the conditions, it's actually, I mean, on average, we know we need 2 kids to replace the population, but in some places, we might think actually lessening the population might not be a bad idea. while in some other places there are enough resources to grow. So I don't know. I think we could engage rather than having these fixed views of like, oh yeah, you need 2.1 kids per woman to replace the population, as if replacement was a fundamental goal. It isn't. It's if we are overpopulating the planet, killing all the fishes of the oceans, drilling the earth like there's no tomorrow, then the idea of, oh, we need to perpetuate this doesn't seem particularly wise.
Yeah, it's very complicated. It's very complicated because for sure there was a point where there were no humans, and then when we're one human, two humans, and you can make a point all the way to here, and at any point it was the humankind was endangered. But I mean, it's you can say like right now we are 8 billion, and if we shrink to 5 billion, we have been there and nothing happens. Like it's actually resources wise is better. The thing is, it needs to be constant and not radical, because in talking about underpopulation, I do think it has an economical impact. Right now I'm living in Japan. Japan has been shrinking from the last years, and this year we have 25 more than 25% of people older than 60, 65, and only 15% younger than 15. That will create a lot of weight on the younger population to keep the all the elder people that cannot work anymore. Japan always has a very good retirement system, pension system, and that cannot be sustained because there will be more and more old people and less young people that is working and producing money to give those bunch of old people the hospitals and all the service they need. So it is a problem because it's shrinking. I think it should be like a stable or shrinking, but steadily, slowly. And another point that I wanted to mention that is very interesting about you say about the passing your genes. I was having a conversation with a biologist about epigenetics, and that person was saying that it is intended in evolution. Of course, it is intended to pass your genes, right? But we were getting that topic about adopting. Of course, adopting is always a very good chance, but he was saying that that at some point, if you reach certain level of consciousness, it is a work that is coming from from generations to generations. So you have a certain level, and you have a big chance to pass that on your genes to the new generations. I'm not talking about rebirth or something, but the genes about epigenetics. Like if you have a higher IQ, if you have a more capacity to discern some stuff, you pass that to the new generation. So denying that is going to be like a step backwards, because you have a work already done, and by not having a genetical hair more than just well, of course you also has people that you can teach, you can help to evolve in in those terms. But that guy has he was saying that it is meant, it is intended, it is important to pass your genes. I'm not pretty sure. I'm not sure exactly how epigenetics works. For sure, it's not like you're going to pass all your wisdom to the new generation, but the potential, the potential is there. So you have some work done, some certain let's say your hairs has more chance to to understand or more easier certain things rather than some other people. He also was suggesting that it's a genetical predisposition to how easily you understand certain things, or even math, or many all the things that comes from the mind.
Yeah, I don't think we'll solve this on this call, but I mean that
We've got 10 minutes.
Yeah, we come from impermanence to epigenetics.
I think it does relate to it's. My view on this is because that argument has been used by my friends once I started saying well, it was unlikely I would have kids. And yeah, I heard that, oh, well, I was visibly having a good brain, that I did study hard and had a good career and what have you, and that I had a good genetic baggage to give to my kids. I think that at the end of the day, that's quite an arrogant perspective. And it's also, again, project permanency. So it basically assumes that what made me adapted to a particular environment would make my kids adapted in the next generation. Now, if we talk in very generic terms about intelligence or what have you, it might be true, but at the same time, you can't actually pinpoint what intelligence is. And if you start trying to be more specific, then actually what made me adapted in the 80s, 90s, in terms of surfing mathematics and finance and what have you, will just not be the world my kids will face. And so if there's a specific gene for that, it won't be the right gene for my kids necessarily. So I think the assumption is going back to this permanency or impermanency conversation. And I think people just assume too much about evolution, about, yeah, it did work, so it will work again. I don't think so. And then the other aspect at my personal level is to actually think that I can engage with more people and help more people than if I have kids myself. I'm pretty confident I would be engaged with my kids, but that's still 1, 2, 3. And they would take a lot of energy and time. And maybe I can reach a lot more people than 3 within the same time. Now, that's my specific circumstances. That doesn't have to be a generic rule for everybody. But I think it's, yeah, that debate about genetics or epigenetics, again, it assumes a permanency that we don't actually can justify. We just, the nature of evolution is that it keeps evolving itself. Even if there is some principle around a genetic mechanism, the type of mutation that can happen are different, and the sort of gene expression, which is what epigenetics is about, is different. So basically with the same genes, but just by affecting the environment, you will get a different result. While we are impacting our environment big time, in terms of pollution, in terms of resources, what's available, not available. So the same genes really don't guarantee much.
No, and in a different scenario, in a different situation, being intelligent in mathematics may not work out so well for you if you are living in a forest somewhere.
Exactly.
You know? I have a question for both of you. There has been talk around here recently about moving from the sunny climes of New Jersey out to the southwest, specifically New Mexico. And, you know, we're doing research into it because water is a finite resource out there. And we're looking into it in terms of, you know, who is working on, you know, sustainability in general. And, you know, what we're finding is that depending on, in this case, people's political persuasion and whether they think it's in their best interest to be a denier or an acknowledger as to whether, you know, the climate is changing, you know, we're seeing that there's a very good possibility that in the next 50 years, there may be certain sections of the Southwest that, unless something is done starting now, that these areas will be uninhabitable. And, you know, especially out in that area, if you look into the Native American ruins, basically, of where civilizations had existed and now no longer do, that the impermanence of natural resources is now and always has been, and I suspect always will be, a major factor. It's something that we have to deal with. Not everywhere that's inhabitable now always will be, and certain places that are quote-unquote uninhabitable now may end up being there. It's all something that's, you know, completely unknowable on the one hand, but not to the point where not knowing means denying what seems to be a pattern.
Yeah, no. But what exactly is the question?
Basically, what do you think about the situation where, you know, things like natural resources are as impermanent as anything else? You know, people act as if they're going to be able to live in Phoenix, Arizona forever, right? They're acting as if there will always be a Phoenix, and they'll irrigate their lawns and water their lawns and grow grass where grass isn't necessarily meant to grow, and maybe not.
We're coming back to our evolutionary natural instincts, and the natural instinct is to say, is to deny, you know, the denial, like everything is fine, everything is our tendencies are to think that everything is permanent, or natural psychological tendencies is to think that everything is it's quite all right, it's permanent. It's like if you put a frog inside a bucket of water and start heating it slowly, it will not try to go out. Like if you drop the frog with hot water, it will go out immediately. But if you do slowly, the frog will remain there until it's cooked. So it's very similar with the humans. Unless we have a very big shake, we don't. We will not. The tendency is to think that everything is fine, and that is the problem. And another problem is the denial, because the interests, you know, the resources, and if people stop consuming all that fossil fuels and stuff like that, it will be very bad for many economies that are owned by impermanent guys that are about to die, so they don't give a crap about what's going to happen in 20 years. So they prefer to be rich in 10 years. And also what they say is about, they argue that we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Yes, we don't know for sure because there is no precedent. Because um, there is something that humanity doesn't have as an experience, which is extinction. Humanity has never been through extinction, so we don't know how it is. So, are we expecting to learn? How can we learn? If we are extinct, we will not learn. But are they expecting to learn through an extinction that is going to happen? So the thing is using common sense that it is a fact that the climate is changed. You can see the glaciers. The glaciers are very, very good measures for that. The glacier has been there for many, many years. Many people can argue that there was a point where the Earth was hotter, but it happened through a period of millions of years, and we are doing those changes in some decades. So the thing is, the that's not exactly what you say. It is my opinion. Is because the sense of permanency makes avoid us to have a sense of urgency on this kind of matters and try to close the eyes and say nothing is happening, and there is a bunch of how do you call those guys, mm, conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and everything will be fine. But you just have to research a little bit, and you will see that something is going to happen. The thing is, okay, we cannot really fix the war right now as an individuals, but let's say, okay, you don't know. The reality is you don't know what's going to happen. That's the reality. You don't know, but there is a chance. So why don't you just engage in this world in a wholesome manner, trying to be mindful when consume food, be mindful when buy clothes, when use the transportation and everything. So that's for sure will help the planet. So in any scenario, it's a win-win scenario, because let's say that climate change that didn't happen, still you help the planet. And what if it's gonna happen? You may help to save it. So at least doing your own engaging by yourself, you can do a lot of changes in that.
Yeah,
Danny?
I think it's very important. It goes back to this idea that in Buddhism, we don't talk so much about good or bad, but we talk about skillful and unskillful. And I think this idea of like win-win scenario, where it's like, well, maybe we're on the safe side, but actually it's the skillful side. We have a mind, we have a brain, we can think, and we use that intelligence in good order with skill, but hence the skillful adjective. And I think there's also a very important point about this, where we don't know what will happen. Typically, if I cross the road, I don't know if a car will bump into me or not. Yeah, I don't know if potentially there is a car coming in first place, but even if there is a car coming, I don't know if they will brake fast enough and avoid me, or if they will kill me. Now, the skillful approach is to look each side before crossing. Okay, I don't know, I look and I respond. It's not, well, I just deny and cross anyway. That's the unskillful approach. So this idea that we don't know, hence there's nothing to do, is rather dumb or ignorant, in my view. I like the point about the extinction of a species. I think among like some people can see that the world is changing, and potentially they say, well, we don't know if it's human or not, but okay, the glaciers are disappearing, the deserts are expanding. So we can see the change of the world, but they still have this idea that, well, we made it so far, so we will make it further. This idea of our ability to adapt being permanent. And I think that's a very dangerous belief. The fact that we did adapt until now doesn't confirm or prove that we will be able to adapt in the future. Again, it's about, okay, let's engage with the situation. Let's do the best we can with the intelligence we have. But we can't just sit and saying, well, right now it's going bad, but I will wait, it will pass, and it will come better, based on some faith that we will adapt. So I think the people who see it's going bad, in a way, are hopeful that it will pass. Well, it will pass, but maybe we'll pass with it. So it's not enough. So I quite like. I think there was many good points in what you said, Julio.
Yeah. Well, there will be a lot of stuff. There is a lot of material to talk about. But right now, I'm afraid that we will have to finish this impermanent hangout. It's already past an hour, and I wanna thanks to everybody who see it. How many viewers, Denis?
I think we picked at 4 or 5. It's not like major, but
well, we are starting, and also there will be more people that will have a chance to watch it later. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for having being today with me. This is supposed to be is my hangout. Next week will be Denis, and the other one will be the three of us again, but that doesn't mean that the next week will not be the three of us again, right? So whatever it is, air off.
You get to figure